What's up guys, it's Mehdi from Imbusoft. Welcome back. Today we are going to create full stack Django and React app, and we are starting with creating Django project structure, some things like model, serializer, viewset, router, and of course we need to configure our database. But in this tutorial actually I just want to take and continue with custom or default database from SQLite. And if you want to change it, this is pretty easy. Just take the structure from actually Django documentation, PostgreSQL or MySQL or something else. And what's interesting here about this tutorial, as you know and as you can see, is full stack Django and React. This video has two parts. The one part we're talking about backend. Actually, this tutorial we will do everything for backend, and next video should be about frontend and React. And the interesting is here that we are creating custom user model, and we will work with custom data and fields. We will work with JWT for authentication and authorization. We will work with token, and of course for our serializer we need Django REST framework. And we will at the end we will test our project from two ways, actually from admin page and HTTP request, something like something like Postman and some other app that you want to test. And now let's to start just from terminal. And just from here I create a new project. I name it, for example, Django React maybe, and to trade. Okay, now from here I'm going to open terminal. Okay, great. Now from terminal at the first, of course we need to configure and create our virtual environment by typing python 3 -m, and I give it the same name as virtual environment structure v and v. And now is the time to activate my virtual environment. If you use Windows, I think you just to type the name of your virtual environment, script and active, but in my case just source vnv being active. Okay, the next step actually is to install the first package manager Django, but I want to do something else. Actually I have my requirements file. I just want copy paste because I must be sure I have all packages, and you can download these packages from GitHub. I think under I found that requirements file. Okay, as you can see, requirements file is what we need to install: Django, of course, and Django filter, Django REST framework, Django simple JWT for our token, and page JWT. What's important for maybe here, or to pay up to clean and clean our code actually. If you have this file, just pip install -r and requirement.txt. Now as you can see, I started to install our packages, and of course in my case I need to update my pip. Okay, great. Now we have everything, and if I do pip list or pip freeze, I can see all dependency. Okay, the next step actually is to create our first project or first config file. Actually we need a directory by Django admin. Now is a start and start project. And start project, I give a name for my start project. Actually, this folder or this directory contains all config file for settings, for route, URL, and something else. You can choose a main name, core name, or I don't know what you want, but as I have already said, config file, I just want to choose a config, and at the end type dot, because I want to have manage.py out of my directory. Oh, start project, sorry. Start project. Yes, of course, I mean a start project. Okay. Now, as you can see, we have created a config file folder directory with all config settings file from Python, VSGI actually for our web server allow us to run Python, and from server, and URL should contain our URL settings. Settings actually contains our settings for project and our app. And I hope you will be familiar with this config file. After install any app, we need to add this app here, and from middleware at this time we don't need to do anything, because maybe by working with React. And from template, if you are using custom or intern template, you can add this part of your Python, for example, template file, HTML or anything else. And about database, as I have already said, I don't want to change this. I want to keep these settings. We are going to work with SQLite. And what's important, and in this time we are not working with, at this time we don't need to do anything for a static URL, because we are going to work with backend. But of course, in the next video we talk about a static URL and a static file and something else. Okay, great. Now save the time, and of course, if I type in Python manage.py run server, now you can see as a default we are going to run our project, empty project and simple Django 4.1 version. Okay, the next step is to, before we continue, I just want to create our first app actually, and by typing Django admin start app. Okay, this app actually contains our other apps. That means I don't want to create classic model for Django and define a URL for any apps. I just want to create a main app, and inside this main app I want to create another app. I give a name as a main, or I don't know, maybe core. Okay, now as you can see we have core app from here, and what we don't need any admin. Of course we don't need a model, we don't need a test, of course. About view, no. Okay, but what we need actually, we need routes, of course. To do that is pretty easy. I'm just create routes.py. That should be contains for all routes and URL apps inside core. Okay, what I want to change from here, label. For label I give it the same name as core. It's too important. After creating any app, we need to install app in here. Actually, I give it a name for our app. Should be core. Great. Now let's start by creating our first, and actually our real first app, and should be our user. To do that, and I just want to do what we can to do. At the first, it's important, be sure you are under core folder, or if you type pvt, you can see at this time we are at the main directory. Now at the first, just by typing cd core, and what we need to do, Django admin start app, and I type user. Okay, great. Now as you can see, under core we have our folder. Our new app is user app. And about user app, what we need to do, we are starting with model. Actually, I just want to copy paste this model custom models class to save it time, and you can check this model as well. Actually, it's pretty easy, and that should be our model class. Actually, we are going to override interface user, and that means from here, as you can see, we are defined public ID should be our ID, or you can choose ID name, what you want, and username, of course, first name, last name. As a default, we don't have more the fields from Django, but is our custom from abstract base user and premise mix allow us to override this class. And I have add bio, avatar maybe, and created, updated, and some other stuff that should interesting. And every times, and from this user we want to create super user. We need this user manager class, and I'm going to add this user manager class. Okay, you can actually copy paste this all the stuff from GitHub. And as I said, I just want to try to save it time. I have a just simple method here, get user from ID. That should be our operation. Create user method allow us to create a method. If you want to create a user from command line, as a default, you just, or super user, you just need to type email, password, but we can improve it, and we want to get the username as well, because we want to work with username. And as a default, from user, you just need to type email and username. Okay, create super user, create user, and just simple operation method. Okay, that should be our model class. And the next step is to, I don't need any tests at this time, and model, I just want to change this name from viewset, view to viewsets, and we need another file, serializers. Okay, serializer.py. Of course, must to be under migration, under user. Okay, great. Why we need serializer? Actually, serializer help us to get the information from database as a documentation, as a doc file or a JSON file, and we can work with this JSON file for integrate some mobile app developer, or for React or something something other else, if you want to work with your endpoint as a dictionary or JSON file. Okay, now I'm starting from here, from REST framework, just import serializer, and from core dot user dot models import user class. The next step is to define a class, and I name it user serial. Okay, serializers and serializers dot, of course, model serializer class. And what I want to do, actually, I want to create 3 different fields for our serializer, but I want to get all fields because for serializer I just want to change this name. As you can see, direct, this is just for test that you understand. If you write public ID, it's not important to be always public ID. You can change this name, for example, for your serializer to ID. It's you can do something like that. And serializer dot UUID fields, and now source, of course, and the name of our model, for example here, public ID. This is just test. You don't need to do that if you want to choose directly the name of ID from here. And read only should be true, of course, and format for our ID is hex. Okay, then the next is created. I put it here that you see better. This created, actually, if you sometimes you need to change as well, like public ID from created as well. I give it the same name, created for, and I can say my serializer dot data field, data image field, for example, data time field should be read only, should be true, because I want to be sure from serializer is just read only field, and it's not possible to edit this file. Okay, the same things for update. And now we'll continue from class meta, and now model should be our model user. And fields, about fields, I'm just going to create the array. It's now is the time to decision actually which fields you want to show after get serializer endpoint or call any get method. And of course we change this name to ID. We want to get ID, for example, as you can see, some other field, something like username, just we can type it, for example, first name as well, and of course maybe last name, I don't know, maybe here. Yeah, actually if you want, you can do something like that. Fields equals all, that means all field. If you are not sure you need all fields, you can do something something like that, because I don't want to get all fields from here. I can, or you can just type something like that or something like that. If you're sure you want to get all fields, you can just type in fields all. Okay, and what we need else, maybe avatar. Okay, and what's this? Okay, maybe there is anything here. Okay, yeah, now, and yes, now for example at this time just I put this name, and again read only field, for example, should be field should be, for example, you can again define an array for read only file, or you can just type is active file. From here, as you can see, we can don't want to change this active user is active, can be actually just read only, but as you can see it's just an array. That means we are allowed to define more, some, for example, super user as well, and or something else that you want. You must be sure actually is read only field. And now after define our serializer, I just want to maybe, and maybe email. This should be not bad actually. I have a new keyboard. This is sometimes it's really, it's not interesting to work with that. And maybe is active and created, of course, and updated. Okay, great. Now we have everything that we want. I can close this model. Now is better. It's ready. It's better. It's better to read. Okay, now come back to our view set, and we are going to start with define our view set. Actually, view set is just our controller, or yes, it's just simple controller that we can define our operation to get and define any method that we need, actually get, put, delete, or patch, or something else actually. Just from here, from REST framework dot precision, just import is admin user. Okay, and again from REST framework just import viewset. There are more than any different way to work with serializer. For serializer viewset, if you want, you can choose another method, but this viewset is actually it's great to work and it's easy, pretty to understand. I like it that. And now from core, oh yes, from core and dot user, of course, dot serializer. I'm going to import user serializer, and again from core dot user dot model, I need to import user class. Okay, the next step is to create our user viewset class, user view set class, and this our user viewset class contains from viewset that we have already defined from here. I just want to call model viewset, and now let's start. Okay, now for this user endpoint, this user model, we can to decide which HTTP method name, which request we are allowed to define, or we can to call. I just want to do from HTTP method names. Okay, now I just want to say allow to do patch, and for example allow to do get. And the next step is precision class, and that means if you want to define a precision, that means without authentication it's possible to do any of these methods, patch or get. If you type is allowed for any user, that means you are allowed without authentication to endpoint this operation, something like get patch or something else. If you want to have operation, actually if you want to define a precision, actually, or define an authentication, you can just to call this is a admin, sorry, this is authentication, actually authenticated is should be is coming, actually is authenticated from is okay, is admin user is authenticated. Okay, now I just want to call this is authenticated, but at this time I don't. This time I just want to have it without authentication. I just want to test our project. And the next step is our serializer class. Create an instance from user serializer class. Now our first method should be def get query set, and what do we need to do from here? I just want to say if self dot request, for example, that user is super user, then as a super user allow to return all user model objects, user object dot all. Okay, and now else just return from user objects that execute actually is super user becomes true, something like that. Okay, the second method, I just want to return an object with ID, and something like filter search, but just typing get object. Now I create object method and I can say user dot object dot get object by public ID. As you know, we have already created this operation inside model. As you can see, get ID, and from ID get object from model. Just need a parameter, and we can say self dot keyworks, of course, and should be pick up for our object ID. And now self dot check of the precision, just self dot request and our object that we have already defined from here. And now of course at the end just want to return object. Okay, great, now we have it as well. The next step is to configure our URL and our routes. Before starting, just I'm going to configure from here, define an include from method, actually from our project, as you can see from config file. And now from path, I just want to say API, that should be our endpoint call method, endpoint address, and include. Okay, now from here, from core folder, under core should be routes that we have already created. As you can see, I call this method, I say API is include our routes, and route should be routers. Now it looks better. Okay, now the next step, actually we don't need anything else. And now namespace should be is optional, but as I can recommend it to define this namespace for you. Is really to understand, it's easy to understand what you want, what you do. And it should be our core API. Okay, great. Now from here we need to configure our user routes for our model. Okay, what do we need to do? At the first, of course, from REST framework, import routes, and from core.user.viewset, just import user viewset, because we want to define an endpoint for any methods under viewsets, query and query all and query by ID. Okay, now I was here, just I can say this is for my user app. I just want to say before starting, create an instance for routes. I say router, for example, routers dot simple router. Okay, great. Now it's better. Now I can just say say router dot register. What do we need to register? Register user, of course. That means, as you can remember from here, just from config file, we have API before any endpoint. That should be API, something like that, user. And now I can say user, and the name from our view set, user view set should be base name, just simple user, for example. And what we need else, of course, I just want to define a router URL patterns for complete our project, just by typing URL patterns, and now okay, star, that means for all our router.urls. Okay, great, matrix looks good. The next step, I can just check if everything is okay from our settings file. And from settings file, actually what I forgot to do, we need to we have already, from here we need to add this REST framework to settings file. And I think we don't need anything. Let me do pick list. We need this JWT as well, actually. REST framework, I think, should be here, and then simple JWT. And this looks good, actually. We have everything. And the next step, actually, it's too important to do that. As you know, we have override model class from here, and we said we want from abstract base model, we want to say, we have already said we want to config new custom user class, as you can see from here, and we want to improve this class. And we can actually, as you can see, abstract, we have, that should be this class, we have override this class. Okay, now is the time to say use this class for authentication. We want to use this class. It's pretty easy, just from settings, maybe here, our custom settings, just typing auth user, and of course model that we want to say auth user model is underscore, actually is this label name that we have already created. This should be, I just want to change this name, for example, core.user, and label can be core underline user. Okay, I just want to copy this and come back. We can say this core dot user class, and of course we need to define user as well here, and we have defined core dot user. Okay, pretty good. And now is the time to run our project, and we can test if everything is working correctly. Actually, before at all, we need to do make a migration, and Python make a migration and Python migrate, just by typing Python manage.py make a migration and Python manage.py migrate. Okay, I have some errors, such folder and directory. We cannot open Django core. Okay, now let me to check. Okay, I'm under core, one back and then again. Okay, now the first error is cannot override namespace for dynamic model provider. Namespace, okay, where I have defined namespace, I cannot remember. Maybe in settings file. No, maybe in model. Okay, now let me to check again. Okay, from API include core namespace, core API. Okay, let me back to our router namespace. I didn't define anything like that. Actually should be from settings, of course, and this API, I think I know, because for JWT I have already created API and I didn't use that. Of course, maybe come back to URL and cannot find this API namespace core.routers. Core.routers is true, actually. API namespace, I think I get an error without namespace. Okay, missing egg promised. Okay, yes, of course. Need base name user, and let's come back to our routers. Okay, base name is error. This actually looks good. What's wrong here? Router register user router. It should be true. Missing viewset, user viewset, and let me come back to here. Of course I didn't. Let me to check from here. What's wrong actually? Of course, because I forgot to actually. Let me come back to here, because I need to define and I need to say core is my helper app for other app. Again, okay. User viewset user base name user. Okay, now okay, actually, as you can see, it's typing the type error is register missing one requirement file. But as for viewset, as I can see here, everything is true actually, and I'm not sure I forgot something else from here, because base model and noun this is the last. This we have set route prefix viewset and base name. I think should be method, or not sure. Okay, great. Now It's because it's a method, of course. I thought it's a class. Actually, it's a class method or something base router. Okay, great. Now, as you can see, it's working, and we have create our method. The next step is to let me to open that. Open database, and from here, okay, as you can see, we have our class and core user class. If I do, we have our fields here. Okay, great. Now let me to from Python manage.py create super user. I think we can test actually by create super user. Just typing create super user. Okay, now get an email, for example admin@test.com. username should be admin and password. Okay, this is true. Okay, great. Super user created successfully. As you can see, take a three fields: email, username, and password, because we have already from user model we have said we want to get email, username, and password. Now let's do run our project. Run server. If I open my project, and now I'm going to admin test, and password should be okay. Great. At this time we can't see any admin from here because we are not registered user inside admin. And let me type API, of course. At this time API user, and as you can see, we get our first admin user. We have already created Serializer from here, and from Serializer we have said we want to get a user per ID. As you can see, we have a list. This is just a list of object. This is just object, and we have a list of object, and we have ID, username, fields, all fields that we wanted to return it. But how about in viewset we define two methods, just one method for get all, if is super user, and the second is to get a user by ID. That means if I get this ID and after user type this ID, now it looks better. I have a patch because in viewset I said I want to have a patch. I just want to have a get. I just have simple method for our project. Now for our object. Now is great. The next step, I just wanted to do that from admin. I want to define a register method just from just current model, import user class, and say admin dot site dot of course register. I want to add this class, and if I come back here and call admin, as you can see we have core user label that we have already defined in app page, core user for our title. And if I open user we can see our first user super user class that we have already created. And if I create new user, get a password again, if you want you can change this structure actually time. Last login, we don't need it, group and user permission, and I give them just simple user, that should be a simple user, and user at test.com is active, is not super user, is stuff. If you want a user account, for example, if you want to choose an avatar, you can choose from here and then save. As you can see, second user is created successfully. That means if I come back to this user, at this time I have two different users, admin user and simple user. And let me to get this user and come back again. I have this user as well. Okay, great. Now I just want to I see this video times, I just wanted to do that under 1 hour. Okay, we have 10 minutes time. I just want to create a new app, and for example for event app, and we want to improve event app with CRUD for delete, of course for insert as well. What I didn't forgot to do that actually from Isomania or Postman. Of course we can test our project here. This is something else. Okay, now HTTP request, just let me to open that again. I get this URL, I'm come back and get just for our user, and as you can see it's worked as well from here. And we take a user, and maybe it's better to create a new folder. I give React, maybe the first Django, React. We can test, we can save everything's under this tab. Okay, should be get user. And again I can't, as you can see at this time I'm not super user, and as simple user I cannot return super user. We have already said just super user allowed to return all object. I have already logging from here and now, and I allow to return our user from user list, but here I'm not logged and I'm just simple user, and I allow just to return just simple user. Okay, that was two different way from Postman and from Isomania or Postman, or from framework actually framework, or just from admin page to check if everything is working and we have access to our data. That should be really interesting. I like actually this Django. I'm working at this time just with fast API, sorry, but Django is what's different actually. Okay, now the next step, I just wanted to create a new app. I put it here. Okay, and actually what I completely forgot, and we have until now we have just created custom user, and we didn't talk about authentication and token. And actually we need a token as well. I just thought we need to start with event. Sorry, just I want to stop our project and create a new app, and I name it, for example, Authentication. And of course, let me to do cd core, and then Django admin start app should be authentication. Okay, now we have authentication under core, and it's too important to take this file. Actually, what we don't need any admin, we don't need any model, test of course we don't need, view we don't need as well. And that should be responsible for authentication token JWT. And from app, I just want to say is core dot out, and label as well should be core underline out. Okay, I just want to copy this path, this file, and come back to my config file settings. And now just from here, and I want to add this to here now. Okay, now what we need is we need to copy paste just simple file or this structure. You don't need to learn some things about that because it's just simple config file from JWT. You just need to copy paste. I just trying to find that. REST framework JWT is responsible for our token. Okay, now as you can see JWT, and we can say default authentication class should be REST framework simple JWT, and default filter backend is our backend. Okay, great. Now let's continue again. Actually, I think we need and we can do that at the end. Okay, now just come back to authentication. From here, I create a new folder. I name it, for example, Serializer, and we need another folder. I name it viewsets. What we need else, and I think now it looks good. Maybe just we are starting from Serializer, but and our under Serializer folder, we need a file because it's separate file, and I name it init.pay. And inside that, I just want to define two serializer, register serializer and login serializer, and just let to start at the first create our serializer file. For example, the first serializer for register, register.pay. Okay, and what we need to do, I just want to copy paste, and to save a time, I don't need to do more things actually. As you can see from core serializer, I have add user serializers, and of course user serializers. Okay, with S, and we define a password. We can say actually is just a condition that our password must to be maximum 128 and minimum 8. Right only should be true. Required of course is true, because after for registration we need a password. And after create a password, what we need to return, we want to return an ID, bio, avatar, email. If you think it's too much, you can delete what you don't want to return actually. And the next step is the simple method create to create our instance actually of this class for new user. And the second should be login dot pay. And what we need to do for login, again I just want to copy paste. Actually after login, as you can see, I want to create a token, access token. I want to have a refresh token, and core users. Okay, I want to create a user. Actually is by login we are going to save validation. Actually all validation should be true to get a token from user. Actually this is our refresh token or access token. And update last login, we can update this last login field from a JWT. Actually this is just simple structure. I just want copy paste from JWT website, and this is just simple structure to create access token, refresh, and for our model is at this time is user. That means we are going to create a token for this user from this serializer. And now I just from init I just want to add both of them. I can say from dot register import register serializer, and from dot login import. Actually we are going to initialization our login actually. Register. Okay, now the next step is about viewset. Again, as it's not to be complete, we need to define login, refresh, and register file for two different ways. Actually for login and for other stuff, just new file login. If you think you don't need refresh in your class, you don't need to define any refresh. Login register, and of course we need an endpoint for refresh. Okay, great. Now I'm starting from login again. I just want to copy paste to save the time. Okay, for login, as you can see, login serializer is coming from core out. Okay, out.core folder serializers, import login, and maybe from here login serializer. Okay, now this looks better. Actually that both of them should be work, and when I have a different color I don't like it. I think we have error or something like that. Okay, and the next step for our what I did to do actually is just simple create method, and just from serializer I get information from login serializer, and I say permission class, as you can see, is allow only. That means every person allowed to log in. This allow only actually we can use for this user as well. As you can remember, for user and get method, if I viewset, open viewset, as you can see, I did it to, I comment this line, but I couldn't be able to do something like that actually. And I just need to check is coming from framework, precision, and allow only. That should be viewset. That should be worked as well. If you want to, and yes, of course, you can comment this line or you can do something like that. Okay, now let's come back here. Just I have already said, just say for login, every person from login, I get information from Serializer and call this method create to login. And after login, of course, from Serializer class, we get refresh token and some other stuff. If okay, and you set login, and now we are starting with register. Okay, what we have already did, just register Serializer. At the first I create the instance from register class, and if, of course, again every person allowed to register this, and HTTP method at this time, and actually at the both here, as you can see, is a post. That means we don't allow to do, for example, get or patch. We just want to have a post method, and that should be worked as well from here, as you can see. And again, for register, after register, we are going to save Serializer object from Serializer class. After typing object, if again register, as you can see from here, we are going to call method and just save our Serializer. And from refresh class, we get new token, and for responsible, return at the end when create a new register, create a new user. We want to return the user information from Serializer data. That was here. That should be this data, validation data. And I just want to, we want to return two different token, refresh token and access token. And for refresh token, we can do as the same. We are going to say we can again allow only post on get a Serializer from instant, and from Serializer we just want to return it. Actually, it's interesting. From here, register Serializer is green, but if I typing logging Serializer, also looks what's up. I'm okay. And something's register Serializer. Okay. And okay, that was our out. And what we need else at the end, of course, that was our authentication. You can improve this code for more security. Actually, it's your possible to for register, you can do more things. Actually, at this time, as you can see, I didn't write anything Morse code. And now from route, just maybe from what I need, yes, out app. I just want to create the endpoint for my out route, and is pretty easy again, but I just want to copy paste it from my instance code. As you can see, we have again API add out register, API out login, and API out refresh. And we need to add these codes, of course, these view sets that we have already created. Okay, now let's start and test our project. Let me to run our project. I'll be sure everything is correct. And okay, cannot find manage.page because I'm under core. Step back. Okay, we have some error here from .login import register. Import register. No, from .login import register. Yeah, I think that's what I have already created inside here. Maybe okay, done. Okay, log should be login serializer. Of course, inside viewset we can define init as well. I am okay, and now let's do say from dot register. I have to import register viewset maybe, and from dot login import login viewset, and from dot refresh import refresh viewset. Okay, now it looks good. Okay, come back to here, and now I just want to create a new user, post, and of course under out, and should be register, and body I choose JSON, and and actually what I did, I forgot to do that. I would just get user. I couldn't to create a new user, and okay. Okay, now this should be our post actually, and post is JSON. Okay, now what we need to define, for example, we can say username should be new user, of course, and what we need as first name, and I'm going to copy paste these things. Okay, now it's better. Okay, now we have first name, last name, and of course password, and we need email as well. For example, new user at test.com. Okay, now I will copy this path from here, send. Okay, first name is required. Okay, great. As you can see, we create our first user, and we are going to get refresh token, and we are going to get a token. Okay, I just want to do something else. We can test actually. We can test from user object API, because I change it to nobody. Base media permission object is iterable, of course, because I changed that to here. Okay, and not model here, viewset again, and I say is authenticated. And if I come back and send a request, of course I cannot access. Oh, what's happened here? Base permission object is not iterable because okay, the further must to be sure it's working, everything is correctly. Okay, now is this okay? I get a second error, second user, new user, with all information that we have already assigned it, and created update should be created automatically. And again, now I just try to log in from this register, new request, login, and should be post JSON. Okay, we are going to log in as a T with this information. Of course, okay. And now I really don't need any username because password and email is enough. And here should be our login. Okay, we have some error here, and you call your post, but your does not end with slash. Okay, great. Now as you can see, we have refresh, we have access token. After login, after every time we do a login, we get a new token, and it's great. With this token we will work with React, and we will sign it with token, get a token for authentication and authorization. Perfect. Now as you can see, we have everything. Now we have authentication as well and authorization. And the next step, what we need to test, I just want to again actually stop our project and create make migration, migrate. I think we don't need it. Okay. PW. Okay, CD core, and from here I'm going to create new app, and should be last app in this tutorial. I want to create a event app, and I will show you how you can create new app actually and do all, because for user we didn't do all all CRUD operations, some things like delete, insert, update, and some things else. And we can have an event app. Just to do that, Django admin start app event. Now as you can see, we have an event again, and we are starting with model. Just again, I just want to save a time, and I just want to copy paste that because I'm sure you spend the time and you can see everything from here. It's just simple model event class, and it's not something's hard to learning or understanding. Just we have just 5 different fields. The field user should be actually we get actually should be inherit, or is you have a fortune tag from user, you have title, body, create that, and updated that should be auto created from system. And just we have title and body, and of course user. And again, I have just simple method to get an ID, get a user by ID. And the next step is to actually, before we are continue, is too important because I forgot every times. Event, of course, core dot event under core we have event, and label should be core event. Okay, great. Now let me again to copy this core and come back to settings, and from here I add a new our app. Okay, and from app I just want to create serializer for our project just by typing serializer. I think I will need something else, or no, of course I don't need. Okay, serializers dot pay. Okay, great. Now what we need for our serializers, just simple serializers. We want to say created, updated should be read only and come back from server, and after do any action from serializer we want to return these fields: ID, user, title, body, created and updated. It's not anymore, we don't need any test anymore at this time. And view should be viewset, view sets. And from here actually I write something's interesting here. I want to show you and why I did something like that. As you can see, I have delete method to delete the object, get the user by ID, and get all user. And what's interesting actually, after register user, for example, as a user we have authenticated here, as you can see. Let me to run our project again. At the first, of course, we need to make a migration and migrate. And okay, what's important actually, and as you can see, if I log in as a user, I just want to copy this line, and if I go to get a user, I can see all user. Of course, for this user or for these events, actually for user just super user at this time, but how can I manage that? How can I work with event? Before we are start, we are continue. Just I tell you, I show you, I create actually here just simple is out. What I want to do, I check the current user that have already logged or register, not register, just log it in our website. I get this username, and from username, actually this is just simple method, extension method that I call it from here, because from here, yes, from here current user, from self request user that username, I'm allowed to get username that is logged in our website. I send this username to this extension, and from this extension I get the ID. Why I needed this ID? Because from this ID I allow to do a filter and get complete object from user. And after that, actually I can say if self.request.user is authenticated, then return an event just for this user. We don't want to allow user that is logged to see another event, for example. Sometimes you want to have a privacy and you must be sure user after logged allowed to access just our source, just our fields and tables. And to do that, we must be sure actually two different authentication, two different permission. At the first, user must be authenticated, and then after authenticated, the current user allow to access to to her or his table, not anything else. And we can do that for, we can copy these three lines for any endpoint, and must be sure user don't allow to access another table and fields. And after that, I just want to, from route, let me to define a route that pay. For example, I say for event app, and copy this line should be event, and here event as well. Okay, and of course from core dot event dot models import event class, and now we can say admin dot site dot admin dot register dot admin site dot register, sorry, site dot register event. Okay. Okay, now we come back here, do a refresh. As you can see, we have event, create a new event, define a user, define, for example, for user, I create a new event, for example, party event, let's Okay, now I save it. Let's come back here to event, and from event API event, of course copy paste. Okay, event viewset, I think from core dot event dot viewset import event viewset. Now, okay, without authentication coordinator not provider. That means without authentication we are not allowed to access this page. And as you can see, is posted for this after authentication we are allowed to do all stuff. Actually, at the first, just for testing, I want to show you just from viewset, and I say permission without any permission. I hope should be work, because here I say it again, should be authenticated. Okay, great. Now actually it's not great because I'm logged as a super user, and as a super user I don't allow to, as you can see, because here get current user and get just return event just for super user is. If you want to do that, the super user allow to all stuff or all, you don't need to do that. Actually you need to write another if. But I want to create new event again, not for super user. Actually that was not for super user. Actually I think that was, let me to admin event. I think admin allow to see. Okay, now again. Because at this time I'm sure without this authentication we are not allowed to check it. And okay, no problem, we can test it again. No authentication. And now let me to from here. From here I'm just create new request, and I get event, and of course I want to copy that and event. Okay, as you can see, authentication don't allow us to get this event. I want to do login with not new user, just with user. No authentication because we have to, I didn't authentication, of course. Okay, new user. For new user, but I need to create a new event for new user. Okay, new user. Okay, now let me come back again here, take this token, and I try to access this token without authentication. It's not possible. Okay, authentication token, and now we take, actually you're going to take this information from token ID. Actually what I did here, it's pretty easy. I'm not sure I can explain, it's too busy. Actually, if I don't write any if, and if I don't get any condition after filter, after get, any user after login allow, or after login and get a token allow to get all event from table. But if you want to be sure that the user allow to access uh, here or his just table, you need to get a current user after authentication, after login and authorization. Just get current user information and just return information or the event from this user, because as you can see from here, from event we have foreign key user and we want to return an event just for this foreign key, not anything else. Okay, that was our actually tutorial, back-end tutorial, and I think should be interesting. You can work more about this, you can do more. Actually, it's depend to your project and depends to you what you want to improve, what you want to check, what you want about security, about models, about serializer. Of course you can do more and more, but that should be just simple way to start with Django and React. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Actually, as I have already said, in the next tutorial we are starting with React and we can see how does it work, how we can use React in our project. And I'm totally sure maybe the actually next video should be actually next thing, next 10 days, because I have a holidays and of course I cannot start too fast. And but I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you, bye.